All right, good afternoon. So before I start, there's actually an announcement, not the real announcement, that's after lunch, but I was told the BitConf folks are here for the registration. So if you need to have an express registration, they're out there somewhere in the patio for that. So I'm excited about this panel. This is about scaling Bitcoin. And scalability has been an important, a major issue around Bitcoin and blockchains, in particular recently, outside of the FTX collapse that happened a couple of days ago. So before we get started, I would like to kind of introduce the great panelists here, and maybe we'll start with Francisco. Can you please introduce yourself? What's your role, your experience?
Thank you, Ahmad. Good morning or good afternoon. I'm Francisco Calderon. I'm a software developer and mostly work on Bitcoin, specifically Lightning Network. And now I'm trying to do everything what I do open source. So most of the time I'm working on personal projects that are open source. And the other part of the time, I'm working for a company that is called DIVA, Digital Bitcoin Asset. And they are working on like a marketplace on top of Bitcoin using RGB. So it's also open source, my software and my work there. So that's me.
Yeah, thank you. Welcome. And Dieguito, I'm sure everybody knows you here.
Yes, I'm Diego Gutierrez Zaldivar, co-founder of Rootstock, CEO of IOV Labs, co-founder of Bitcoin Argentina and Latin America NGOs, and co-founder of Coinbanks.
Welcome, Diego. Yeah. Yeah. So with why do we need scalability? So we all have heard of the blockchain trilemma. And our systems trilemma, which is there's decentralization, security, and scalability. And all systems have to pick two. Bitcoin's ethos and principles is around being highly decentralized and highly secure. And so there are other protocols that are looking to scale Bitcoin. Rootstock is one, Lightning is another one, but they have different approaches. So I'll start with you, Diego. How does Rootstock and RIF kind of scale the Bitcoin network?
Well, I have my own trilemma. That is security, scalability, and functionality. But it's still the same because why this trilemma is a little bit different on the one you said, because I think also when you add more functionality to a network, you are also trading off scalability and security. It's like and in a way, Rootstock is a way of scaling Bitcoin in the sense that in Rootstock you can do maybe a few dozen transactions today, but when the full roadmap that Sergio has for optimization on the on-chain layer is applied, we can process maybe 2,000 transactions per second without centralizing the network. So, but that's there's a paper or an article from Sergio that is very interesting because basically the different models are, for example, creating template transactions. So when you are reloading a payment channel, that's off-chain transactions, you are doing a kind of transaction that has most of its attributes that are always the same. So the only thing that changed maybe is the balance you are sending. So there are ways of optimizing on-chain data. The other thing that Sergio has in the roadmap is transient transactions. So not all data needs to live on the blockchain forever. So why not pay for the storage of that data only for the amount of time where I need it? So there's a model where data is alive, let's say for a few months or whatever you need, and then you leave a pointer so information can be rehydrated later on. But then for the blockchain, if you don't pay, the blockchain will get rid of that extra information leave only the hook. So there are many ways. I would say Rootstock is on-chain extensibility or scalability for Bitcoin, and it was implemented in a very particular way that is a sidechain. A sidechain is a secondary network that shares with the primary network the native asset. So Rootstock shares with Bitcoin the Bitcoin asset. So every transaction in Rootstock is paid in Bitcoin. So the fees are paid in Bitcoin. But we are a very particular version. Rootstock is a very particular version of a sidechain because it's merge mined. So the same miners that are processing and creating blocks for the Bitcoin network are creating the blocks for Rootstock. And now it has around maybe between 50 and 60% of all the hashing power of the world is in Bitcoin, is protecting also Rootstock. So that makes Rootstock over time extremely secure. So that's the other interesting thing. So I think Rootstock is not only a scaling solution, but it's an enabler of new things to happen in Bitcoin. That's the more powerful thing.
Okay, thank you. And Francisco, since you have more experience around in Lightning and other protocols such as RGB, how do those scale Bitcoin? Yeah.
Okay, I think the way I like to be scaled, there is a lot of ways of scale Bitcoin, like for example Rootstock, and the other way is looking off-chain protocols, for example Lightning, and I think it's a very smart way of making scale Bitcoin because you don't need to settle all the transactions on the blockchain. For example, to buy a coffee is not. We don't need that. We have to rethink things to find a better way of scale. And off-chain protocols, for me, are a very good solution. And that is when Lightning entered to this area. Payment channels were let's say, invented a long time ago, but it was only one idea. And when you put payment channels in a network, it changed everything because you don't need to open one channel for the service you need to buy or sell. You only need to open one channel, and now you are in the network, and you can send and receive payments. And this changed everything because now we were used to use Bitcoin for buying on internet, and you don't care to wait for 10 minutes for the confirmations. But if you go to the streets to buy something on the street, or you're going to buy some, let's say, an ice cream, and you have a line of people waiting, you can't wait 10 minutes for a confirmation. So Lightning, in my way of see things, Lightning is bringing people to more people, bringing Bitcoin to more people, to people in the street, to people that don't need to wait, people that don't even care about technology, but people that care about monetary policy, and people that are tired of using fiat currency like happens here in Argentina or in Venezuela, where some small group of people decide for all the population of the country. So for me, I think Lightning is one of the best ways to scale Bitcoin. And also there is other ways like RGB, where you can, it's built on the same principles of chain. And we can do with RGB, there is a new, this year I think was, people start to talk about sending tokens, fungible tokens on Lightning because of Taro, that Lightning Labs started. But we were working on RGB a long time before Taro on this, sending tokens on Lightning. So this is another another door that is open that sending tokens online, and we have all this. We can use this network that is growing. It's like I don't remember how many nodes, but there is it's growing exponentially. So we can do scale Bitcoin. We can use the Bitcoin network, Lightning network, to send tokens, and we can do a lot more. So
maybe, because I don't know if everybody knows how a payment channel works, but it's conceptually, maybe we can explain. Because payment channels, what you do is that you load certain amount of money, Bitcoin, no, in the case of Lightning, into a channel, and then you do, that money is locked in that channel, and then you do like micropayments or partial payments against that money that is locked. I'm oversimplifying this, no? But so the idea is that instead of like recording each transaction on the blockchain, what you're having is peer-to-peer in exchanges of signed data that are the IOUs, no? The IOUs between the parties. And once you have made enough IOUs to deplete the channel, you can either close the channel or replenish the channel, no? Put more money into it. So basically, let's say that you do 100 payments, and then you open a channel, you replenish the channel, you are doing 2 on-chain transactions, so you pay in Bitcoin maybe 50 cents to $1, but you have done 100 transactions. So the total cost for each transaction, because exchanging data in the off-chain part is free, basically, the cost is 1 cent per transaction. That's why Lightning is so cheap, because it's basically you are not adjusting the balances for each transaction. You are consolidating a lot of transactions every now and then. So that's one concept of off-chain scaling. There's another one that in Ethereum is very used or developed, that is CK, the rollups. Basically, what you do is like you are not impacting, again, optimizations on how much information you are recording on the blockchain and how often you do it. And I think that's how we are trying to solve the scalability problems of blockchains, no? Creating this delay. That's how the traditional system works, actually. It's like the system is not like credit card system payments. They don't like settle every transaction. They consolidate transactions. So it's doing this, but in a non-custodial way and using protocols. So that's, again, we are rebuilding the whole financial system with protocols, not intermediaries.
Great, yeah. So, Francisco, you mentioned Taro, which is a new protocol that Lightning Labs introduced recently that we are all very excited about. And at IOV Labs, we're also doing some research and development about. Can you tell us a little bit, or from your experience, what kind of Taro is and what problems does it solve?
Yeah, Taro, I think this was this year, right? Was Lightning Labs release a group of papers about how to make, how to transfer tokens, fungible tokens, using Lightning channels. So they released an alpha version like 2 months ago, and it's very interesting that because this now we can use. With Taro and RGB, you can set like real decentralized exchange, because you can set up your node and you can say, I have USDT and I change it for sats at some rate, and people that want to send USDT but have Bitcoin, they can use your node and automatically it's gonna take the fee. So it's very interesting because you don't need to put your face or name. You just create a pseudonymous node and you put money there, and you have your own service provider for like exchange.
But I think it's very exciting because now you can have transacting Lightning more than Bitcoin. You can transact the dollar, but the problem is like in the issuance of that dollar, you still need a custodial entity, no? It's like somebody is creating this USDT.
Yeah.
And I think that's where Rootstock can contribute a lot to Taro, because if we connect Taro to Rootstock, we can have a smart contract maybe handling, for example, Taro issuance of assets or controlling. So we can have a more decentralized Taro version on the issuance of the asset, not on the exchange of the assets. And the other thing that I think Rootstock can contribute is the price discovery, because otherwise you need to negotiate, the price between different assets like every time. So automation of price discovery, given that in Rootstock you have decentralized exchanges, can provide that information as well, would be interesting.
That would be very interesting to move dogs.
Exactly.
Online.
Exactly. Move dollar on chain into Lightning or any other Bitcoin-backed asset into Lightning would be great.
Yeah. I think we will have a good future. I hope.
Yes.
Yeah, this is the whole premise of being interoperable with different protocols on the Bitcoin network, is to enable one asset to seamlessly move from one protocol to another and to conduct everyday use cases. The other project actually that we're doing research and development at IOV Labs is, which you mentioned a little bit, Diego, is the ZK rollups, which is at a project name called RIF aggregation. Can you expand a little bit more about what's so exciting, why you're so excited about it?
I think for now, and I'm not the expert, but because we have our research team that can speak deeper into how the protocol works. But one thing is, I think that for now, rollups, as they are implemented, again, what they do is they bundle a lot of interactions and then they update the balances, the updated balances on blockchain every now and then. So one thing they do is like they remove a lot of the cost because you are not interacting on the blockchain every time. But for now, most of those protocols are linear. Let's say that you can reduce the cost of the transaction by 12 times. So you have certain level of scalability, which is good. But what I think we will manage at certain point with zero knowledge proof and certain aggregations is to disconnect the size or the cost of the settlement on the blockchain from the amount of transactions. So we will get to a point where maybe with 600,000 gas, that's a terminology of how you measure cost on Rootstock and in Ethereum. Let's say 600,000 of gas is, I don't know, maybe $1 or something. With $1, you will be able to settle or update the balances of 5,000 transactions or 1 million transactions. Once we break that linearity between the cost on chain versus the amount of transactions we are processing off chain, we'll see something that it will be very powerful, because people operating nodes, payment aggregation is very good for intermediaries. No, it's like, say you have a wallet, you have your 200,000 users. What you want is like all the interactions between your users, you don't get them on chain. You have this payment hub, you do the aggregation, and then you settle every hour or every half an hour on the public blockchain to ensure that if you're hacked, the window of opportunity for the hack is only that window between settlements. But if we can break this linearity between the cost on chain and the amount of transactions we build, basically for node operator or for hub operators, the cost will be fixed. You can tell them, okay, if you do a settlement every hour, you only have to spend $500 per month, and you are taking the risk of 1 hour of transactions in between your users, but it's 500. So if you have few users, you can take that risk. But if you have 1 million users, you will say, okay, I will settle my transactions every hour, every minute, because I want to reduce but it will be a fixed cost. It will be 60 times higher, the cost, but still reasonable. It's like if you have millions of users, you have a fixed cost of operation of $30,000 per, which for millions of users, ask any fintech or financial system, is nothing. So I think what will be exciting is when we are able to break that linearity between the cost on chain and the amount of transactions we are gathering together in those proofs. So, and that's a potential that this technology has.
Great, yeah. So in this panel, we talked about scalability, the challenges, the various scaling protocols on Bitcoin, Rootstock, and Lightning. Is there any final thoughts or any new other technologies that you guys are excited about as well?
No, I think I don't know.
No, I think it's mostly all innovation around Bitcoin is happening. I mean, Bitcoin innovates also on the core, but in a different direction, in ways of optimizing the blockchain, like being able, like, you know, the recent developments are about like making multi-signature signing, that's multiple parties signing a transaction more efficient, being able to have maybe thousands of signatories sign a transaction. Those have a lot of applications, interesting applications, even for Rootstock, no? In terms of optimizing the withdrawals from Rootstock into Bitcoin, having maybe in the future, for example, multiple federations. Now Rootstock has one active federation, pegnatories, and then a fallback federation, and in the future we might have 100 federations, and then even if you want to attack the federators and make them stop the network, you don't know which will be the next federation, the next fallback federation, so attacks are impossible to do. So there's a lot of exciting things, but I think everything falls in the realm of Lightning, Rootstock, and the core improvement of Bitcoin. I think that's where the action is happening now, in terms of, I would say, deep tech innovation. So.
All right, excellent. Well, thank you very much. It's been an honor being with you guys here.
Thank you.